And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Christina.
And we are now hopefully live on YouTube in a matter of moments.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you all for being here. I am so excited to have this the second meeting. What? I'm going to put my little book down here. First of all, I want to congratulate Clayton. Clayton is the first person to absolutely complete the Oxcom task book. So congratulations, Clayton. You finished your Oxcom task book.
Both the Oxcom and the ComT. I got both of them.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. And with that on the table, I want you to know that there's never, well, for the last few years, there hasn't been a big debate over where we're going. We will eventually go to Oxcom. At present time, we are still using the tri-state or the tri-section task book to qualify for any operations that might have to be done, any deployments that might have to be done. You should finish level 1 to be deployable anywhere in your county or this section. And if you plan to go anywhere further than that, you should complete all of your sections 1, 2, and 3 in the tri-section handbook. Also, once they go completely to the Oxcom task book, everything you have in your tri-section task book will transfer. Since the beginning of the year, if you want to go beyond 1, 2, 8, and 7, and 8, you'll have to redo those 4 in order to go up into the 3 and 4 or 2200s. The previous ones have been antiquated now, but if you don't want to go any higher, if you're happy just with your 1, 2, 7, and 800 ICS classes, then you don't have to do anything or renew them at this time. We do have a new section, North Section ARES leader. You may have known Carl. Carl had to retire or had to step down from being section leader because of health problems. And his second in command, which was ARC Thames, has taken his place. They just kind of switched. He's now helping ARC, and ARC is the North Section commander. There will be Oxcom classes during the hamcation, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday is the ARRL National Conference. There's a communication section or track, and they will be talking about ARES at 1 o'clock. I'll be one of the presenters at that. So I hope you can all make it, or at least, I don't know if it's going to be Zoomed or not, but there are 4 tracks, and one of them's DXing, one of them's technical, one of them's ecom. Okay, well, they're not Zooming it. And I forgot the 4th one. But anyway, that's what's going to happen at the hamcation. And then, of course, Friday and Saturday is the normal hamcation. So I have been thinking about our last exercise. We didn't quite, well, we accomplished our goal, which was to find any flaws and problems in our ability to communicate with each other. And so that turned out to be a smashing success. We did find some problems, and we had some great solutions and some suggestions. We had the suggestion from, I don't see him here today, but somebody from Hillsborough, that we find out what every section had at their disposal as far as equipment to use. We found out that 2 meter is what everyone has. And so I wanted to do a drill with 2 meter to make sure we can all communicate throughout our 10 counties. Problem with that is time, because I didn't want it to last more than our normal 10 to 9 to noon. And if I gave every person the net control to try and get in touch with the other counties or to relay messages to the other counties, I think it would take more than half an hour per county. So I was thinking about that and trying to figure out what exactly to do. And suddenly something came along, and I was very happy for it. And that was a suggestion from Chuck Johnson. Yeah, I was called to go to an emergency meeting, or not an emergency meeting, but a planning meeting in Sarasota. Sarasota. Okay, and we were talking about the Piney Point disaster that had happened in Manatee County. I don't know if all of you are familiar with that, but they had this huge retention pond of millions and millions and millions of gallons of contaminated water, and it sprung a leak. And it was endangering a lot of Manatee County, rural Manatee. They had to evacuate 300 homes. And so this brought Governor DeSantis in on it, and it was declared an environmental emergency, which qualified it for a lot of aid and also put it into the realm of a disaster where we could have had a part. So in lieu of that, after they did get it fixed, well, they didn't get it fixed, but they got it emptied to the point where it's no longer endangering the entire countryside. Manatee and Sarasota and a couple of our southern counties got together and decided to run a program or a drill called High and Dry of what they would have done if that huge retaining pond would have actually broken and flooded the entire countryside. Not only would they have had to have rescued the families that were within the area, but they would have also had to rescue a lot of animals, especially cattle and horses. So they put together a big program called High and Dry, and you may have heard it on one Saturday morning last year. They had the NI4CE up and running for about 3 hours, and Sanford was wearing out his pencil, taking notes. He was the net controller. He's really good at it. Very nice, Sanford. And they did the entire program for 3 hours. Well, they did learn some important things. And I, as the section emergency coordinator, and some of you who are emergency coordinators for your county may not know exactly what processes you go through or how you would handle an emergency if it came into your county. And that's one reason that we're going to do some practice here, not here, but on the air. And we're going to run some of our own drills. We're going to pretend that the first operational period has gone past, and we now have somewhat of a handle on this emergency. We know what we need, or we're pretty sure some of the things that we need. And so now we're going to start a second operational period, which will be High and Dry Part 2. And we have two at least that I know. We have several. Looking around this room, we have several people that have run emergencies, that have been in on big operations. I know this one, I'm gonna let Chuck do a lot of talking about it and setting it up. He's done not only in our county, our state, but also in our country. He's been all over with different positions under FEMA, and he's very familiar with that operation, with their operation. And I think that's something that we could all use a little help and practice in being familiar with. So I'm going to have him come up. He's going to explain this High and Dry Part 2 and some of the things that we can look forward to doing. Like I said, I couldn't get to all of you on 2 meter in 3 hours and have you practice talking to all of the other counties. So he's going to tell us how we can eliminate that huge span of control and kind of crunch it down so that it's doable, and how each of you can operate within a project that would cover all of our counties. So let's welcome Chuck Johnson. Come on up.
Thank you, Christine. How many of you got a chance to listen into or participate in our High and Dry that we did back earlier last year? Yep, okay. We had a really good time with it. The scenario was that was Hardy County that was hit the heaviest. And we've tried to utilize the main concepts of the incident command system. And I know that that's the direction that y'all are going down. It's the proper direction that you're going through with the information that you're taking through your task books. It's learning the incident command system. And the great thing about it is that it has the terminology and the general philosophies of it work across all boundary lines. So that's the way to go. And the institutions and agencies that you're going to work with and interface with in emergencies are utilizing that now more and more. So that's the positive. So what we had was our first operational period where there was this 3 days of a rain event that just held up over that area of Hardy County, part of Polk County, DeSoto County. The state animal response team came in, set up a resource staging area at the Turner Center in Arcadia. We simulated that. And we had, my main hat is the Sarasota Ag Recovery Group, which is volunteers from the Farm Bureau and from the Cattlemen's Association that have come together. We have ham radio operators that are also involved in it, that are members of it. And we assist local agencies like our Sheriff's Department ag teams with trailers, livestock trailers. There's not a lot of counties that have that type of equipment. Plus we have people that have the expertise. So it's the right people. In Hurricane Charlie, they sent those type of people over to DeSoto County from our county. They went there without any communications capability. And it was a disaster within a disaster. They did the best that they could, but they were completely out on their own. And that's what happens with so many of the volunteer groups. Those of you that have been involved in any kind of emergency management stuff, you know, there's all the agencies that you see represented in this room, they all have their own communication system, but volunteers, as they plug in to the great needs that you have for that first few days in response and then into recovery, they're in the fog of war. You don't know really what they're doing, and it's sort of everybody go and see if you can get something good done. So we had the simulation that the Ag Recovery Group was performing our operations, and we went into the scenario as a customer of ARES. We looked at ARES and said, you have in this, especially this part of Florida, you beat out a lot of municipalities and even counties in communications capabilities. You're top end. So what we were able to do was to come in and become a customer of ARES and ask for that support. And it worked out really well. And when we used those ICS components of having a command net and then breaking it down into subnets. So that worked out really, really well. We got a lot of information done, passed, and a lot of processes done that were done behind the scenes, but there was one central clearinghouse that wasn't overloaded. So on April the 9th, we're going to do the second operational period of high and dry. So those of you that have already experienced it, this is going to dovetail right in. If you haven't yet, or if you were in the bleachers, as one person said, if you were in that mode, all counties in the region, in the section, are going to be involved in this. We're looking at breaking them into divisions and then having it so that our span of control is correct. We take the things that you're learning in ICS classes and make those in a reality setting. So you go, aha, I see now why they do that, why that's so important that you stick to those ground rules, because it keeps from you having the traffic jams and the wrecks. But you can still very effectively be able to move communications in the command structure. So we're looking at doing that from 9 till noon. And for Christine is going to be in contact with all of the county ECs between now and then. And I know for your part, Daryl, we kept you in the dark because
A lot of people do that.
well, he was like, wait a minute, I don't know what's going on. What's going on? We're going, you'll know that day, because that's reality. That's the reality of it. When I was first in the fire service and they had a big disaster drill in it, it was one of those lessons learned that has stuck with me forever. They had it at the airport. And at that time, our city fire department ran the airport's response in for any crashes. And they had painted the places where each one of the fire trucks was going to park and put the fire truck number on it and all that. And it was great video for the local TV station. Looked really organized. People came back and they told me, I didn't go to the drill, but they said, we didn't learn anything other than be able to figure out what one of those boxes had the same engine number as ours and park on it. We didn't learn anything because the airplane isn't going to crash right there. And we're not going to have somebody there ahead of us to be able to mark all the places out. We've got to be able to work through it and think through it. What would have been the better scenario was to have some classes ahead of time or some tabletop drills to be able to get people into it and then go, okay, there's the plane crash. What are we going to do? And everybody goes, we know the basic ground rules of how we're going to play the game. So we're not going to be your customer other than in a small way from the ag recovery group. There'll still be stuff going on, but we're not in the response mode. We're into doing different scenarios and they will be subnetted down and going to have a lot of different things. I used to write the scenarios for the sheriff's department for their tactical first end teams. And there was another guy, he was a fire lieutenant with us, but he also was a medic on the SWAT team. And the two of us, oh man, they hated it whenever we came along because we could think up some pretty good stuff. But we challenged them. We made things where it was challenging and interesting, and everybody went away and said, I got something to be able to say, I learned something today. So this is going to be the next operational period on this. And I think from talking with Christine, she's got a lot of ideas of things where she wants to prep the group towards this. And we'll have a long list of scenarios that we can play. I don't know if we're going to ever have a high and dry 3, but you may knock this one out of the park. We don't need it. So any questions for me? I'm looking for input today too from any of y'all. I silenced the group, Daryl.
I do that all the time.
Okay. All
That's
right.
not a good thing.
Okay. All right, Christine. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you to Chuck. I'm looking forward to working with him. One of the ways we are going to solve this, 10 different people are going to be trying to get through to me. We're going to group counties into a division, maybe 2 counties or 3 at the most, and they will just have one person that's communicating with me. That's that ICS span of control so that you don't get so many things going on at once, you don't know what you're doing anymore. And so we'll be doing it that way. We will have like a cert set up where we would have to send these requests and get answers back when we request things and when we need things and so forth. And that will give all of the ECs experience in handling and writing ICS forms, which yes, we need to do. And also it'll give me experience as your SEC in case we do have an emergency to get all that information out so I can get the responses back to you as fast as possible. Now, a couple of other things that I've been looking into. As you know, the more robust that communication gets and the more backups that communication gets, sometimes we think that the smaller the piece of the pie that we have as ham radio operators and ARES people. But when you really look at a disaster and the way it runs, for example, we were talking this morning, and during a disaster, you have a lot of groups coming that want to help. You have maybe Catholic Charities, you have Salvation Army groups, you have groups from churches, and all of these different groups want to come in and help. And yet, during a disaster, all of these people are kind of like on their own. But if we had, I know in my county, we have a county-wide CERT group, which isn't associated with any particular area. We have the Lake Ashton group. We have this huge housing subdivision that's in 2 separate cities. It's so big, and they have their own CERT group, and they do really wonderful drills. And I'm going to have one of them with me at the ARRL convention so we can take some questions from people who want to get a great CERT group going or have exercises for their CERT group. I know when I was up in Pinellas, or not Pinellas, Pasco, I did my CERT training up there because they had training for the deaf, and I wanted to go with the deaf group and watch everything. So I went up there for the CERT group training, but they have a CERT group on Jeeps, and they go out and go through places and look at, just do what CERT teams do. But it was a very active CERT group. I'd like to have that one written up too. I know Rick is very interested in that because it's getting to where we need to branch out. There are a lot of things that we can do that needs to be done, but in a disaster, if we had like the countywide, I'm not assigned to any one place. And after I'm done at the EOC, because that's where I'm assigned during the actual disaster, I could rest up a little bit and maybe go with one of those teams and provide enough information from emergency management to put them in the place where they're the most needed. Other things, like I said, Rick, who is running the ARRL program, is very interested in CERT, and we are writing an article for our Lake Ashton group that I would like to get any really active CERT groups that are in your counties to write something about also. Then I was talking to the North Florida section, and I don't know if you knew, but Carl has resigned as the section emergency coordinator up there. He has some health problems. And so he's taken the assistant position, and his assistant, Ark Thames, is now the North Florida section emergency coordinator. And he was telling me about some problems that they had even during Michael, which was a major disaster, but because it was all over in the Panhandle, and the North Central section is, to me, really, really big. I think it's very hard to actually, if you had it's very hard to communicate with all of them. But people over on the East Coast felt like it's their repeater, man. They want to use it. And they actually started running interference against the ARES groups. And they would record stuff from previous ARES conversation and play it back at another time, purposely, just to confuse them, and because they were mad at them. And I thought, that's unconscionable. I can't imagine that they would do that, but somebody did. And so their answer is they're pushing to go to shares. Now, shares doesn't require a ham radio license because it's not within ham bands. And if you work under the federal government, then you could operate during shares in an emergency. In fact, during an emergency, almost anyone can operate almost any radio if it's an immediate emergency where you are. And so they're pushing for shares. Something else that may be coming down the pike is, I don't know if you guys have done a lot of looking into Starlink or SpaceX and the Starlink technology. Yes, I know that's not ham radio. It's internet, but they're looking at that. We could set up Starlink in every county for about $300 is the estimate. I know the last time you asked me who was our representative to state, and our representative to state is Ben Henley. And he was Polk County or West Central Section Coordinator. And he's now gone to the South Florida Emergency Section Coordinator. But that's something that they are looking at. And we would be free from cyber attacks there. And in case of a really bad disaster, we could even go to military platform. The system is self-contained, and you can run it at 400 to 500 megabits. So that's pretty fast. 2 gigabits if needed. Yeah, and it's working and getting better every day. So we should still be looking under new tech and what we can do. Like I said, CERT is a very viable thing that belongs to the ARRL that we should work at using and getting out in our communities and using just to help in everyday things that gets our people active. It teaches them, how to be in different circumstances and coordinate. It's about what goes on when you're all in your own Red Cross shelter. I don't know, some of you don't do Red Cross shelters. We still do them in Polk County. Some counties have stopped doing that. But it gives us the ability to get out. Clayton, do you have a comment?
Yeah, a lot of that, Christine, you may find that a lot of that actually comes under Volunteer Florida. And that's where all of the group, the actual citizens tour is the umbrella for all of those, for the CERT teams, the MRC Medical Reserve Corps, your CERT teams, the Medical Reserve Corps. ARES actually falls under a lot of that as well as a member of Citizens Corps. So that's, a lot of that falls under the Volunteer Florida. So you may want to explore, instead of just narrowing it down to 13, actually work more with Volunteer Florida, because they're a much larger, broad organization, and they have all of the other organizations that they can tap into, such as the First Baptist and all of those.
Okay, thank you. Did that go out on the,
I believe so.
okay. So I'm hoping all of you heard that at home. Like I said, we are looking for ways to stay relevant. We haven't had a large disaster where we actually locked down in an AC for quite a while. So we are working hard. I know there's a lot of advances being made in ham radio. Some of you that are the purists on hams don't like the DMR technology and some of that, but it is very useful, and the people who use it and enjoy it are all for it. And it's pretty easy to deploy to get it set up, because you can, when they've set up the communication towers for the military, which are the first, to get there, then you can set up your DMR links. Of course, if you have ham radio and you have electricity, you can set that up pretty quickly too. You just have to bring all that with you. So let's see here. I was going to talk to you. Like I said, I did talk to Ben Hendley. Part of the drill that we're doing with High and Dry too is to see who we have. Part of the rules are going to be, when we run the drill that morning, whoever is on the air, whoever's listening, whoever's there is who we're going to have. And I think this is excellent, because with emergencies like hurricanes, we do sometimes have lead time on them, but a lot of times it's just you got who you got, and you got to make it do. And so we're going to be working with those people, seeing who can do what and how well we know who in our county can actually perform certain tasks, and if we can get in touch with them. I know in my county, I have people that are excellent in certain areas, and if those areas are needed, then we want to get to them, and we want to pull them in and say, listen, we have an emergency. Are you willing to go here? I know in my county, not a lot of people are willing to go very far. They may go to the next county, but I don't think I have a lot of people that want to go anywhere outside of the west central section, probably not more than a couple hundred miles from home. They'd probably like to be home at night in their own bed. And I'm sure a lot of you have that kind of members too, and those are great members, because when the emergency comes to us, they'll be very valuable with us. Okay.
Christine,
Yes, sir.
I'm rising to state my opposition to the brilliant person who decided to age out prior ICF training and requiring old parts to go back and retake the classes. To the best of my knowledge, Judge, nothing's drastically changed for the ICS system.
As they say in plain language, not a damn thing.
Right. Well, and we are continuing to shoot ourselves in the foot. I've been involved with ARES for over 50 years, and we've always had trouble getting volunteers out. And if we start mandating that you have specific training classes and all this other stuff, you're going to severely cut off our volunteer pool. Go to it. And you can sit there and say you got to have ICS 28,000 and all this other stuff, a tattoo on your left arm and all this other crap. These people won't show up. So we ought to really stop taking a step back. I'm not adverse to training. I really ain't. But I'm adverse to somebody saying, in order for you to perform a service to your community, you've got to have the following. You've got to have a tri-section book I want you to rethink this thing. You're really cutting your face off to spite your feet. Just thought I'd point that out.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comment, and I don't know if I didn't state it correctly. If you've already got them, you don't have to do them again. They're not outdated. They don't have to be redone. It's
I thought you said in order to do that, in order to go up forward, you have to be up to date.
if you want to go not out to serve your community, but if you want to get a higher level, if you want to go through more classes, if you want to go into 300 and 400 and 2200 and there's a huge list. So if you want to do all that, they want you to have the updated training. But if you just want to serve your community, there are people in Polk County that are great ham radio operators. And if there was an emergency, I'd call on them. I would use them. I don't care if they have never done an ICS 100, but they're going to be a little lost because they won't know the technology, the terminology. They'll know the technology, but they won't know the terminology and they won't understand how it runs. And I'm sure, they can probably pick that up in a day or two. You have one boss that you answer to under ICS, one person that gives you rules, one person that you go back and forth. That's the span of command. It's one person with maybe, I guess, maximum 3. Is it 3 or is it 4? Anyway, not very many people under you. And so,
contrary to the California Fire Services, who always claim that they invented the ICS, Alexander the Great, you ever heard that name?
I think so.
He performed his miracles by ICS, which is nothing but controlling your span of control. I mean, so I'm sorry, I'm not enthralled or enthused with ICS 100, 200, 300 and stuff like that.
And Larry was there.
Yes.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a remark on that is, I really see the difference in this, and this is where we look at it in large fireground operation, is a crew member, and they may be a college student who's working a summer job on the fire crew. They needed to have 100, 200. They knew how to be able to read an incident action plan, not write an incident action plan. I think that's the difference. That was the drawing line. They need to know how to survive, be safe, run a chainsaw, do those types of things, but they don't write incident action plans. And I think that's where he's going with this thing too, as far as the level of training that you need is here. You would need that technical training to be a ham radio operator. But if you're not going to be at a management level where you're going to be writing incident action plans, and it's just in my opinion, you don't need that much education.
Thank you. I think most of us would agree to that. Most of us don't want to go all that far. Some of us like traveling around the United States. I know we had an EC in Polk County who always was upfront with us that his main concern was Red Cross, and he now deploys all over the United States when there are emergencies out there, and he enjoys that, and he's good at it. And we need people like that, but we need good old homeboys that just stay right here and know how to run a ham radio, know how to get good reception, know how to set up an antenna, and just know all of that, and are willing to work for us. And so we're all for that. We are not against it. I like planning. I kind of like to have a picture of what I'm going to do before I have to get up and do it. And for me, that's ICS. But if you're just going to work in a shelter, what sort of training do you need? You have to be able to find a shelter and find a room and set it up and be available. And so if you're going to train to be a shelter operator, then you have to go to Red Cross, but you don't need that in my county, just to be a shelter ham radio operator. And so I'm always looking when we have an emergency, which one of my hams is planning to go to a shelter? Will you take a go kit, or will you take your own rig and go to the shelter with it and be our contact there? And so to me, that's fine. And so I totally understand what you say. I know a lot of people don't like classes, and especially online classes. They can be very boring.
No, I have no objection to training in classes. My objection is some bureaucrat saying in order for you to perform, you must have a following.
No,
Offer the classes. I've taken every ITS class known to man, but don't mandate a ham with a walkie-talkie that just wants to be able to help its community have all these classes. It's not gonna happen. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen.
well, that's true. And that's why you have your emergency managers, and that's why you have your emergency coordinator. I see a lot of agreement to that. It's gonna come through. I'm gonna look at my list of people. I'm gonna look at who's available, who's willing, and who knows what, and where I can put them in case of an emergency. And if they're staying inside the county, it's not gonna go any higher than that. And so I have people, and I can put them in a shelter, and they're excellent in a shelter, but that's gonna be all they do and all they wanna do. And I'm glad for them. I don't need them to have the training to go, run a command center somewhere. Do you have a comment? You're just listening over there? Okay. So one of the big things that was given to me when I took this position is to get this group of 10 counties with their own concerns and their own personalities to work together. And so I was kind of excited when I saw what Chuck was doing and what Manatee and Hardy was doing. And I thought that's kind of what we want. We don't want to invade anybody's space, but we do want to have everybody be able to come and work together. And I think we're going to do that very easily. I think once we have the plans and we know what we're set to do, that we're going to be able to do it. So we'll be, like I said, in groups of 2 or 3. We'll be having one liaison to me to look for what you need and to find it either in our county or to petition or ask for it to requisition it to be coming at us from another place. Now, if you're interested in Starlink, and I don't know how many of you are interested in actual Starlink and that program, but I did find an excellent not a website, a podcast. And so if you are interested, if the man's name is not even given, but he does an excellent job. He speaks very well. Plus the graphics that accompany him on the podcast are excellent. And the only name I have is Homie at Large. And yeah, Homie at Large. He lives in an RV camper somewhere on the Gulf Coast down south of here. And I was listening to his Starlink 2-week update. So he's going to be traveling out west pretty soon. I know Starlink has got a few problems, but those are being worked out and technology is advancing very quickly. Right now, you cannot be mobile with Starlink. You can't be driving down the road on your Starlink. Sorry, you have to be in a stable position. He was saying that one Starlink hub will handle about a 500-mile area. So we have states that have no hubs in them at all, or no satellites, I'm sorry, in them at all, but they are less than 200 or 250 miles across. And so they are serviced by other Starlink downlinks that can service them. He's going to be taking a trip out west and he'll be on the air or on the podcast letting us know what's going on. So I think, let's see, I'm going to be taking the Oxcom training. To me, one of the things that was problematic was proving when I did something. I know I passed. I don't wake up every day just hoping to solder something. I hope that doesn't shock anyone, but Daryl can testify. He's watched me solder. I did build my own little ham radio and tune it.
You did good for a first timer.
So I have done it, but I'm going to do Oxcom training again for a couple of reasons. I want to know exactly what I'm asking people to do if they want to go out of the state, or out of the county, and I want to be qualified. It's something I'm supposed to be having the task book finished, and those dates are even in the tri-section task book because they don't want to send somebody who knows absolutely nothing. Like if the power button doesn't work, it's like, okay, I guess I just go home from here. they would like somebody that can do a little more than that. So that's what the tri-section book is looking for. And it's also what task or Oxcom is looking for. I don't know, you finished the Oxcom? How difficult was it? Was it more difficult?
Well, the Oxcom is more about radio operations and not so much about what button to push, what BL-259 is solved or anything like that. It's about actual radio operations. Dave there is actually one of the Oxcom instructors right in front of me, so he can elaborate even further on that because that's what he does, both Oxcom and ComC and ComL. So he can probably give you a better summation of that. But I mean, I have done both the Oxcom, the ComC, and I've completed the task books and they're kind of off. But Dave can give you, better descriptive. I know when you're saying pushing buttons and stuff like that, that's not what Oxcom is really about.
Right, I know when I came into ham radio, and honest, I know I am a baby compared to a lot of you who've been doing it for years. My first brush with ham radio was right after Hugo. And I was in Fajardo, Puerto Rico, right after Hugo went across the end of the island. And ham radio was just a real godsend, a real blessing to the people there. And so it stayed in my mind. I want to learn how to do that. And then when I became a ham radio operator, when I got my tech license, I wanted to be an NCO. And I started almost immediately when I heard NI4CE was looking for someone. I just sent them my application and I was surprised. They came right back and they gave me a slot and they liked me. So I think I've been doing it about 5 years now. Every Saturday night I'm there as the NCO. And yes, it does entail more than knowing how to push a button. But anyway, do you want to elaborate on that for us just a bit?
So, hey, Christine.
Go
This is
ahead.
Tom. This is Tom, K9XV out of Charlotte County.
Are you on?
Yes, he's on Zoom. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'm
Tom.
on
I
Zoom.
realized you weren't
Okay.
here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. So one thing that I wanted to let you know on you can look at my picture. I didn't want I look pretty bad in person. Anyway,
As bad as I do.
yeah. So one of the things I heard you talking about AllStarNet and such like that. I just wanted to let you know that I have been working with NI4. I'm actually now part of NI4CE. And we have been working on the new digital network for NI4CE. So we've been testing NXDN all the way from Seminole all the way down through Charlotte. And we just introduced the Charlotte repeater, which is at the very south end of the county. And we have full coverage of everything from Seminole all the way down to Charlotte, continuous. So, and it's all NXDN. So maybe at the next meeting or maybe even at the February session at Orlando, we could either give you a demonstration or give you some background on what NI4CE digital network's been working on.
All
Any
right.
comments? Is anybody, I know some of the people, yeah, Steve. I see, Steve, you're muted. Steve, you're muted.
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Okay, I keep on hearing about this. Do you need a special radio or can you get on and download something on your phone or computer? Or?
So NXDN is a specific radio, very similar to DMR or with, like a D-Star based radio, but NXDN is an open protocol that's been primarily used in the smaller commercial world, and both ICOM and Kenwood make radios for both of these.
Okay.
And the thing that's been very attractive here in probably the last 2 years is that the radio prices have dropped tremendously. And we also find that There's a lot of returns that come in. We get, so anyway, Paul, NB9X is definitely the access point for a lot of these radios. You can get them off eBay. We have the code plugs for them. They are a UHF radio. You can do VHF also, but primarily they are UHF, both analog and digital. So we are loading them with both analog and digital settings throughout the counties.
Yeah, because I have the DMR radio, the TYT,
Right.
and that's the dual band one. And I'm always hitting the repeater down south. I'm in Sarasota, and I can walk around the house most times with my handheld and still have a pretty good signal. So.
One of the things that people are impressed with NXDN is that the audio quality is much more studio audio than.
Oh yeah, because everybody sounds like a drunk on DMR.
That's correct. That's correct. And part of that's the TDMA protocol.
Okay.
But this uses a totally different methodology. But if you guys would like us to give you a presentation on it, we've been working hard on it since the end of last year. And I've kind of got rung into this, but anyway, I really am. It's been a very interesting technology to work with, and the linking has really come together very quickly.
Yeah, I know.
So we've got about 6 to 7 repeaters in the.
Yeah, in the past, I know Paul egged me on to get that instead of the DMR radio. I remember when I was shopping around, but I didn't know the reason. So.
Oh yeah. But anyway, it is a parallel network to the NI4CE analog. There'll be an NI4CE digital, and it's much more resilient than the analog. The analog is basically 6 repeaters all linked together.
Right.
This has got trunk groups and a lot of different capability that we don't have on the analog. So I just wanted to let you know that. You guys, if you want some more info, you can either contact myself, K9XV at ARRL.net, or contact Paul, NB9X. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Can I talk to Steve just a second?
Steve, are you listening? WXX wants to talk to you for a minute.
Steve, you there?
You're muted, Steve.
Unmute yourself.
Automatically does that. Okay, go ahead.
This is Sanford, Steve. I have an NXDN radio, and so does W4CWJ in Sarasota. So you've helped me out a lot with DMR, so I know a little bit about NXDN. So if you want to get in touch with me, you've got my email, phone number, and so forth.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Thanks, Sanford.
If it's above me, you can get in touch with Tom or Paul. So I'll be happy to help you out or something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Sanford's there. Believe me, using.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve, that's all I had. I just thought I'd say that I have one access to one.
All right, thanks, Sam.
And Tom, I wanted to apologize because I knew that you were ready to talk about the communications network that you set up during the high and dry and just other exercises that you've done. I wanted you to talk about it, and I didn't know you were there. So can you do that?
Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I got it. Very good. Well, we were doing our local SETs. We did participate in high and dry during the ag group exercise, and we will be doing the phase 2 of that. Primarily, though, we used NI4CE for a lot of that communication. So Dwayne actually directly participated in that. And of course, he couldn't make it today, but he could give you a lot of background on that, and actually even the phase 2. So that's Dwayne, W8JJV. So, yeah, we did participate in that. We did an SET with all of our hospitals. We'll be doing another SET in February. We probably have an SET almost every month between now and hurricane season. So the other thing I wanted to let you know is We have several new communication sites for WinLink. We have high-speed WinLink at the Stadium Tower, which is on the north end of Charlotte County. We also have, and that's all Vera FM and X25. We have Vera FM and X25 throughout the county. There's 4 RMSs throughout the environment. They are all on winlink.org. And we also brought up the HF WinLink RMS tri-mode, and it's currently on 40, 20, 18 meters, and also 6 meters. So it's scanning currently. We just got our equipment in this last week from our grant, and so things are starting to really come together. So it's been really exciting time, and it's time to exercise all this new equipment. So back to you guys.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, and I'm sorry getting used to this hybrid meeting stuff. I wasn't looking up there, but thank you. And Pasco, you had just gotten a grant for, where's Pasco? Ah, how are you coming?
He is actually on Zoom.
Oh, okay, well, Pasco, how are you doing? KE, where are you? There
Tim,
you
K4YGB. A grant, unaware of a grant.
Oh, I thought somebody said you were getting a grant. No? Okay.
Wish I could get one.
He fell over his chair.
We'll take it. So, no, we put in, we were notified within the last minute that we did have a $350 budget. And so we put in some equipment requests based on that budget. And that's still pending. So, but no grant that we've heard about as of yet.
I have no idea where that came from, but it was stuck in my mind. You were getting a grant, and I thought, oh, that's great. Okay, are you going to be with us on the April 9th set or exercise?
I did put that in my calendar, and we'll come up with a team.
Okay, I'm going to be working at my EOC to see if I can, we can get better coverage through the Kathleen repeater out into Pasco. So hopefully that will work.
Oh, the Kathleen repeater works great on the east side of the county, but it's not reachable from the EOC on the west side of the county.
I see. Well, we'll have to see if we can do something, or if you can. We were talking about cross banding. Some of the, Tom, did you say that you did the cross banding when you did the exercise before into several counties all at once? Tom Chance? Unmute him.
He could unmute himself. and
Unmute yourself and talk to me. Are you there?
Tom, K9XB, unmute and answer your question, sir.
I think you asked the wrong person to unmute.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know where Tom went. And I don't know where Chuck went either, but they were doing cross banding to getting several repeaters in several counties to be able to speak with one another.
Christine Sarasota did the county exercise that they cross banded, and it's quite successful.
Yeah, Christine, this is Steve. It was actually Sarasota. I think Gary's on Zoom. You might want to talk about that.
Okay, Gary.
Good morning. Yes, we did do a crossband on the Manatee repeater. I think it was 146.82, and we did it off of the off of some new antenna we have on our tower at the Red Cross. We discovered we didn't have the tone set up correctly, so we were getting some input from Fort Myers was coming in as well. So we had some lessons learned for the event, but it was a success. It gave us great coverage to South Sarasota County, but we need to do some more debugging before we just throw this thing on the air like we did, just because we're 200 feet on a crossband, and it came out on UHF simplex, but we're sorting out a few things, realized we didn't have our tone set correctly, and we did have some issues with interfering with Fort Myers. So it's a great tool, but you really got to take your time to think it through before you just throw it on the air, that's for sure. But it was a success.
Great, thank you.
And Gary, I'd like to thank you and your crew. I know it was a group effort, but of the 22 check-ins, we had logins to our resource net on January 8th. 7 were from Sarasota County, and it enabled, our furthest south check-in was from Venice. And from Venice to the Bradenton, Manatee County EOC is quite a haul, as most of you know. So if anybody'd like to see it, we refer to it as the Mutual Assistance Bridge. Think about that, Mutual Assistance Bridge, okay? It's not something every ham should do, and it's not something we run 24 hours a day, but I was amazed by the performance. And so thanks for doing that, Gary.
If anybody speaks up in here, please use the mics at your desk so it goes over the screen properly. Thank you.
So we had a lot of really good techniques used, good ham radio work done to link these counties. And so I would like us to look into that, like how we could talk to our neighboring counties in the best possible way. I know from the EOC, we can reach Hardy and Highlands fairly easily. So that's closest. I can reach also the east side of Pasco. I can't get to their EOC though. And depending then on what else is working, but if we could figure ways that we could all get to talk and develop networks, even if it's only a few of us that can all get to one point, we can make a network that will be workable. And I'm looking forward to the April 9th drill to see how that goes, to see now if you're an EC, your part in this is to figure out who you have in your county who might be willing and able to provide service. Daryl, you're giving Mike a hard time. What services they could provide. And then we're going to be on the second operational period for a flooded area. So the flood is now going to be moving out of Hardy, where the initial rain fell into the south of our counties. So those people are going to be the ones affected. They're going to be coming asking us. And so we're going to be the good neighbors trying to figure out what we've got and what we can send and how we can help them. And in future scenarios, we'll pick one of you, one of our other counties to be the county in need. But I think this would be a good way for us to really sharpen our skills and to learn what we're doing, to be familiar with ICS without all the training. Oh, he's not here. Without all those training manuals to teach. Oh, he is over here. To teach all of the people in our county, all of that, that ICS stuff without never having to take a test online. And just that would make you happy, right? I think it would make a lot of people happy. It would not make ARRL happy. By the way, please promote ARRL. There are so many groups out there that would love to get a hold of some of our airwaves, and they're out there protecting them. There are NRA, if you want to put it that way. They are protecting our rights and are keeping our airways from being swallowed up by huge companies that would overpay because they know for a fact they could make it back pretty easily. And as technology expands, they want our airwaves too, so we want to keep them. Anybody have any comments? Problem? Go ahead.
Well, since you had brought it up about this partnership and we've got all the ECs. That doesn't want to work. Oh, there we go. Being that you already are talking about this, I'll go ahead and let part of it out of the information as far as just pairing up the county so we can have 5 divisions, geographical zones. So Hillsborough and Pinellas will be partnered together. They'll have one operator that'll talk on the NI4CE network will be the command net. We'll have one operator assigned to that. That's the ECs from each county can trade people off however they want to do it, but that command station. That one needs to be able to talk into a network that's
Oops.
Hardy and Highlands will be another division. They'll be the original Division A.
Did something happen to the audio?
Somebody want to unmute the main speaker, please?
We're getting a shelf back in place so we can find that button.
Should be unmuted.
Can you hear us now?
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
we can hear you now.
Yes.
Oh, good.
So I'll run back over. That's going to be Hillsborough and Pinellas will be a division. Hardy and Highlands will be a division. Polk and Pasco, a division. Sarasota and Manatee, a division. And Charlotte and DeSoto will be a division. And you can expect that Charlotte and DeSoto will be affected areas.
Is this been documented on something that could be sent so folks can have this like in a chart or something?
Yes, actually, the division assignments are going to be coming out for y'all, but just to give you a little bit of a heads up as you're talking
Okay.
about.
I mean, I'm not asking for the plan, just the division
Yeah,
assignment.
just the division.
That's
We'll have
fine.
that out way ahead of time.
Okay.
Where the division assignments will be. And one of the things that, and Steve Park might even be able to talk about this a little bit of when we put the original high and dry together, is I called him the afternoon before with Manatee being so involved. And we simulated that we were in the 3 o'clock operations planning meeting, just like we were in the real cycle of this. And that's whenever he got information about what was going to happen the next day at the point that you would know it in a planning meeting. So we tried to simulate that with that planning wheel that ICS uses. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's important to note, Chuck. To make a drill effective, this is Steve. To make a drill effective, we don't want the players to know ahead of time. The scenario will be described, but the way emergency management actually operates is you have an incident action plan, and then you have a briefing, and then you go execute. So we'll follow that. That's what Chuck's describing. It works very well, and it allows you to plan any kind of an emergency, but keep the activation very generic. And so your folks know how to activate. That's what you want.
So are we going to do like the ICS 201 and we're going to go through the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Something we need to know if you're in management, not if you're on the field.
Yeah, one of the things, Christina, that we had on the first one was there was not a formalized ICS plan because it was in the reactionary part of it, but there was time by the time you would be in your second operational period, you should be producing written plans. So this one's going to come out with written plans and more meat on the bones a little bit. And that should get by day 3 where you've got a consistent, it's just changing little bits and pieces and names here and there.
All right. Anything else anybody would like to discuss at the meeting today? How many of you are going to be at Hamcation? Oh, good. Stop by the ARRL table. I'm going to be there at least on Friday. The MCOM is going to have their own table. ARES, I should say, ARES is going to have their own table. I'll be there in the morning. I'll be at ARRL in the afternoon. And so I'm hoping to see all of you. I'm looking forward to my OXCOM classes. I want to see what's going on. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Just mentioned Oxcom again. Did you say that someone here is a trainer for Oxcom? You are? I want to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah,
you're
dude.
gonna get Dave to talk about that.
Yeah.
We got all the sidebar stuff.
Okay. That's what an interactive meeting is for, is to get sidetracked once in a while. All right, back to the main point. How much different is OXCOM from the tri-section task book?
Thank you for asking. OXCOM is a course that's being presented by the DHS CISA in order to train to fill the position of OXC in the incident command structure. The OXC is a person, an auxiliary communicator, which could be a ham operator, it could be a shares operator, it could be a react person, it could be anybody that can help provide communications at that skill level within an incident command. They would typically work with either a COMT or a COML, and they would be part of the communications plan that's being presented for that operational period, which can change at any time. It's a course to train for a position. And the position currently for training requires a ham radio license. The reason for that is this is the first wave of OXCOM that's being taught. And it was decided the best people to target this information for are those with radio background already. They already have the skill sets that are needed to support a communications deployment. So we said we want amateur radio operators first to be trained as OXCs. And then from there, we'll see what happens after that. But right now, that's the target audience. We are offering OXCOM classes to the ham radio operators that are interested in filling that slot in an incident command structure. And that's all it is.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know there was a lot of discussion last time about where we were going to fall. Well, ARRL doesn't really have a place at the table. FEMA does and CISA does. And so OXCOM is where we're going to fall. So eventually where we will be, probably within 3 to 5 years, it'll be totally, we're just OXCOM personnel, although we may still keep the ARES designation. Go ahead.
No, there's still more than many reasons for staying in the ARES program, doing the ARES task book and supporting your cities, your counties, your regions. It's only when you activate at the state level that credentialing is going to be required by the state. And then if you go out of state, they want to know that you've met the same training standards as a COML, COMT, or OXCOM. So locally and then within your geographic areas, your ARES task book and your structure is still more than appropriate. And I recommend everybody do both task books if they're really serious about it.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot of overlap between them too. What you can do in one will also qualify for the other.
There are many instances where the tasks are the same, a little bit different training targets, but that's all going to change over time too as the courses are refreshed and new programs are started. They'll expect you to be knowledgeable on those also, and that's just part of the ongoing training. Training is good for anybody at any time, for whatever the reason.
So, just for fun, I'm taking a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I've got 2 more classes to complete, and I'll have it just for fun. No, actually, I've worked with a lot of kids. I work in schools a lot, and I worked with a lot of kids that ended up in juvenile detention. So that's why I decided to do that. But that's a little sidebar. All right, now I think some of you have wanted to look at the equipment that's back here on the back wall and want to see it demonstrated and ask a lot of questions. it's kind of a short meeting, but I've kind of, if you want to, what?
Couple of
Oh, we
announcements.
have some announcements from Daryl.
You want me to do it now or later?
We can do it now
Okay.
because I thought we could go back and look
All right.
back there and just chat.
There we are. See my ugly mug shot. Really give you all a heart attack. Oh, you ain't kidding, man. Cover your eyes. I'm passing out some flyers now. TechCon is coming up in about, let's see, a month from now. I think it's pretty close, just a little over a month from today. It'll be February 25th and 26th at the Polk County Emergency Operations Center. I'm beginning work on the Friday afternoon workshop. I decided to, we had others doing the workshop in the past, and I guess I'm gonna take the dive this year. We're gonna have a PIC microcontroller workshop on Friday afternoon from 1 to 5. And then from 6 to 8 or 6 to 9, or when the last stories or lies or or whatever get told, we'll have the Friday evening workshop. You can see it's on the flyer there in front of you at Sonny's Barbecue there on Wrecker Highway, at the corner of Wrecker Highway and Spirit Lake Road, if I remember rightly, in Winter Haven, about 3 miles from the EOC. It's about 3 miles, if I remember rightly. And the address is there on the flyer in front of you. And if you guys are on Zoom, I know it's noisy typing, but I'll put up the link here towards the end of the program. I'll try to get that link up for you. You can go to the section website under special programs. It'll be on the right menu, and look at 8th Annual TechCon, and the information is posted all there as well. So you can take a look at the addresses and the Google map and all that good stuff is there for TechCon. And then Saturday, we'll open the doors to back at the EOC at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll open the doors. If you're planning on coming, please register on the section website at the TechCon registration form. We've been getting spammed on it a lot lately, but go ahead and fill it out. I'll know if it's legit or not. I can tell legitimate registry from spam, and just let us know if you're coming. So we have a head count, so we know how much coffee and donuts and that kind of stuff to get. And then we'll kick it off at 9 o'clock. We're working on getting our speakers lined up for TechCon now. It's looking good, and if you're still not too late, we have an opening for maybe one more speaker or two. So if you please help us out with that and show up and support it. And this will be our 8th annual one we've done. It's hard to believe this will be our 8th year. And we hope to, and I'll knock on wood, and you guys on Zoom could hear me knocking. We'll have it on Zoom and on YouTube. And probably we're going to do the Zoom webinar mode is what I'm thinking at this point. That'll be much more suitable than a meeting mode. So this is going to be new ground, and I'm going to have to find out about how that works. As we get closer, I'll know what we're going to do we may not do a Zoom part for the Friday afternoon workshop. We may just record it and make it available on our YouTube channel afterwards. This meeting this afternoon is being simulcast YouTube simultaneously. So it'll be there for anybody to watch afterwards. So you can see the noise on the podium, the mistakes and all. So you can watch it all if you're bored and have nothing to do one evening. And also there's a flyer there for 1 week after TechCon on March the 5th and the 6th, I believe is the date. It'll be the Bike MS Tour. It's mostly in Polk County. We're still looking for volunteers. We only have 5 rest stops to cover on Saturday and 3 on Sunday. And so you can go to citrustour.org. You're getting a flyer there in front of you for that as well. And we still need some folks to do SAG and I think Greenways at this point. So take advantage of that. It's great. I do it for the practice because I mean, hey, you need to have practice for the real thing. So it's a good chance to try out your equipment and good to try out yourself. That's what we're doing this high and dry part 2 for. The bike tour is another way for you to exercise yourself and your equipment. So I hope to try out a new ICOM 705 in my Go kit. I got a plan to get it in there and get it mounted. So don't forget about TechCon coming up. That'll be again February 25th and 6th. It'll be 2 weeks after Orlando. Just remember 2 weeks. And then the Bike MS Tour is the following weekend. Used to be that was in May. They have now moved it up to March, and I'm thinking, wow, boy, they moved it right behind TechCon. So that makes it quite interesting for me. So I'll try to get those links on the chat here in just a few minutes as quietly as I can, and so that way you can go to those for those of you that are not here in person. And that's it for me.
Okay, before I break, MDD, our section manager, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Use the mic, please. I wouldn't hear you.
No, I think you guys pretty well covered it.
other than the fact, I think we went off the rails there a little bit through part of it, but other than that, I think it's pretty well covered. Anybody have a question for me? Well, I must be really important, huh? No, but I think a lot of it was good information. As I say, I think we went off the rails a little bit in part of it, but be that as it may, it's can be a free for all, and I guess that's what it somewhat was today. So I will turn it back over to you for now, Christine.
Christine,
Yes, yes.
I have a question for you about Hamcation. I will not be there. Is there going to be a tri-section meeting? ARES meeting?
I believe so. I don't think Ben is going to be there, so I'll just probably meet with Art.
Okay. If you would let me know, if you do have a meeting, let me know time and I may be able to have one of my people there.
All right, I'll ask him and I'll let you know.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me reiterate, ARES is alive and well, and it's going to stay. It's not going to get absorbed or anything. No, we are still going to have it. We will add a little of the Oxcom stuff for people who want to be higher up and more in charge of things. But if you just like working at your own place in your own county, have at it. And I'm sure you'll do a good job. And your section EM will notice, or your section EC will notice and refer you to the EM if there's a problem, so that we can all work together. I want to thank you all for coming. You've all been marvelous and supportive and helpful. And if you have anything you want to bring to me or anything that you want to suggest,